And good afternoon and welcome to the Chris Salcedo Show here on Newsmax. The great Ronald Reagan, in one of his collections of speeches, said that his critics told him he became president because he was an actor who knew how to give a good speech. Reagan, with his contagious optimism and confidence, said that isn't too far wrong because every actor knows two things: to be honest in what he is doing and know the audience. That's not bad advice for a politician either. Upon reflecting over that quote, I came to realize that our nation is devoid of statesmen. With corrupt politicians like Joe Biden, Mitch McConnell, Adam Schiff, John Cornyn, Eric Swalwell, Nancy Pelosi, and many others defining our political class, I found myself longing for the days when the majority of our politicians were competent, classy, and despite their disagreements, pro-American. Sadly, Washington, D.C. and the political and appointed ranks are buffoonish, unqualified, crass, and put their own wealth and the benefit of other nations over the priorities of the United States of America. I'm not running for president, but if I were, here's what I'd say. This is the first in a series of preambles that will reflect my desire to see dignity, pro-Americanism, and morality return to the Oval Office. My fellow Americans, we have not inherited an easy situation. Because of the antics of the extremists in the Democrat Party, our nation has been crushed under unrelenting crises and commensurate harm. This unprecedented attack from within threatens our very existence as a nation. Instead of uniting in principled opposition to this agenda of chaos and destruction, the Republican Party has chosen to shrink from its duty to protect our blessed land. Not only won't the GOP unite to oppose the socialist agenda of the Democrats, the GOP can't even unite to push back on an attack on our most basic and fundamental rights, like the right of free speech. I want to share an email that was sent to me by an American patriot who, unlike the Republican Party, is ready to fight against the cancerous left wing. Harry writes the following: in light of DirecTV and AT&T dropping Newsmax, we called and canceled after being a customer for over 20 years. The person we spoke to when signing up with Dish said they were being swamped with folks just like us. You'll be back on our TV next week. The plus side to this is we'll get more channels, and we're saving $70 a month. Now that's America. A person who sees an injustice and is ready to put their effort and money behind stopping it. Harry represents tens of thousands of Americans out there who are standing with Newsmax and for American free speech. Now, I could not be prouder of all of you out there, all of you true Americans. Harry had 20 years of loyalty to AT&T and DirecTV, but AT&T and DirecTV are loyal to the left and not to the American ideals of fundamental fairness and American free speech and debate. AT&T brags that taxpayers, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, and everyone in between are pouring money into that company through government contracts. Have all Republicans united to stop all government money from flowing into the anti-American enterprise that is the woke American telephone and telegraph? No. The loss of free speech and the ability to have their own viewpoints heard still isn't enough to cause Republicans to rise up united against their friends, the Democrats. If elected, I will ensure that no budget gets my signature if it doesn't immediately stop all taxpayer funds from going to any company that takes our people's money and then proceeds to implement a campaign of ideological bigotry. Even though Newsmax is the fourth most watched cable news channel in America, AT&T has said they will never pay fees to our kind. Instead, they make sure all of the money they get in monthly payments from Americans goes to supporting left-wing channels with smaller audiences. Now, many might be asking, what happened to our once responsible corporate citizens? How could they so completely and irreverently turn their backs on one of the core principles that defines America, the right of free speech? Well, as Jonathan Cahn reveals in his new book, Return of the Gods, as America turns away from our devotion to God, the very fabric of our society is unraveling. We can see evidence of this all around us, from the promotion of the transvestite story hour and drag shows to children, to glorification of the sexualization of children, to the flourishing sex trade ushered into our country by Democrat policies, to the teaching of racism in Gov Ed under the critical race theory rubric. America's downhill slide was predictable and certain. One of our greatest presidents gave us his wisdom and warning back in the 1980s at an ecumenical breakfast in Dallas.
You know, if we look back through history to all those great civilizations, those great nations that rose up to even world dominance and then deteriorated, declined, and fell, we find they all had one thing in common. One of the significant forerunners of their fall was their turning away from their God or gods. Without God, there is no virtue because there's no prompting of the conscience.
Could Mitch McConnell and 17 other Senate Republicans have voted for that disgusting omnibus bill if they had a conscience? Would Joe Biden and his party have opened up our borders to usher in a series of crises that are causing death, sexual exploitation of children, tons of China's fentanyl, poison flowing into the veins of our people, killing them? Could the Democrats have done this to us if they had a conscience? The modern-day version of Sodom and Gomorrah, New York, and its primary den of debauchery, New York City. And one of the clearest signs yet of deviancy from Democrats who identify as socialists and their hostility toward American traditions and our godly heritage. The city of New York has ripped down a statue of conservationist President Teddy Roosevelt in front of the American Museum of Natural History. At the same time, leftists in New York have erected what critics are calling an abortion idol atop a New York City courthouse. The artist says it's part of an urgent and necessary cultural reckoning underway as New York reconsiders traditional representations of power in public spaces and recasts civic structures to better reflect 21st century social mores. The statue, meant to honor the late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg and her promotion of slaughtering children in the womb, is the creation of Pakistani-American artist Shazia Sikander. It features a woman with tentacles as arms and what looks like ram horns for hair. New York is now open and in your face with its rejection of America's Judeo-Christian God. And that brings us full circle to those with courage to stand against the anti-God party. When third grader Lydia Booth was forced to wear a mask to her unaccountable left-wing government school, the district there, well, they made her wear that mask, so she decided to make the best of it by wearing a mask that said, "Jesus loves me." Now, who could be against an expression of love from the Son of Man? Well, Gov Ed, that's who opposes those kinds of things. When they tried to stop her First Amendment right of free speech, little Lydia fought back and won. My fellow Americans, I'm running on the Conservative Party ticket because the GOP leadership gets up every day and contemplates how it can deliver for Democrats while pretending to their donors and voters that they aren't doing so. Unless and until the GOP considers itself an opposition party again, I'm saddened to say they are not the solution to the problem that is the Democrat Party and the socialists who now run it. But take heart. As little Lydia Booth showed us, we only need conviction and courage to stand up to the intolerant, godless censorship left. Courage that is in short supply among Republicans. And as a parting thought, if our enemies have identified our moral code, our Judeo-Christian ethic, our godly heritage, a heritage that created the Constitution, if our enemies have identified this as our strength and have set out to destroy it, shouldn't we be equally motivated to save it?